So this is what the top of funnel campaign looks like, right? There are 4 different stages. We'll get into each and every one of them one by one. If you guys are spending 10, 20 grand a day and you're not at least breaking even on the front end, you're going to find it very difficult to scale. So we do want really salesy creatives still and real direct response creatives, even when marketing with e-commerce, so that we can break even. And then we monetize on the back end with our middle, bottom of funnel and our post-purchase campaigns. So this is what the top of funnel campaign looks like, right? There are 4 different stages. We'll get into each and every one of them one by one. And this is how we set up our campaign. So on the left here, you can see our initial testing phase, okay? You guys should be able to read that. Now what we do in the beginning is we set up 2 CBOs, right? And within these CBOs, we put a mixture of lookalike audiences and interest-based audiences. The main thing that you want to remember here is you want to just keep your audience sizes pretty similar because, again, like the last speech, it's all about the algorithm and letting the algorithm optimize. And if we put wildly different sized audiences, it's going to mess with the optimization of that and the delivery, and we're going to struggle to get the results that we're looking for. So make sure you're setting it up with similar sized audiences throughout each ad set. And then on the ad level, we use something called dynamic creatives, which a lot of you guys probably know what they are, but to those that do not know, dynamic creatives, we can put a number of different variants in terms of headlines, copy, descriptions, images, videos, and Facebook is going to create a bunch of different combinations and it's going to spit it out and start delivering that to the audience, okay? This I love for a number of reasons. Firstly, it really helps with ad fatigue, okay? When you have so many different combinations and you give Facebook all of these different options for the algorithm to choose and the algorithm to deliver what it thinks is best based on the data that Facebook has, because we only have like a tiny percentage of the data that Facebook has on its users. When we give Facebook those options, it's going to deliver and work much better. And you know, once we start delivering and they're seeing all these different variants, our ads are going to fatigue much slower because we can crank up the frequency and have people see our ads multiple times since they're seeing those different variants. Same deal with our retargeting, our middle, bottom of funnel, and our post-purchase stuff. If we put dynamic creatives in there where we've got smaller, closed audiences, that's where we can really crank up the frequency and we don't have to worry too much about fatigue where we otherwise would have because those audiences are smaller. So from there, from our initial testing, right? So we get those live, we test them, we take the results, and then we move them into the middle stage. And that second stage is what we call the narrowing stage. And this narrowing stage, real simple, all we do is we take the 5 best winners and we throw them all into the narrowing stage in terms of ad sets. And then on the creative level, we actually go in, have a look at the breakdowns by creative, the creative breakdowns, so that we can have a look at them by variation, and we put the top variations into this stage. So basically all the stuff that we've gotten from our tests, we've just narrowed it all down into one campaign, and this typically works quite well, right? With that, we begin to scale it up, and we'll talk about scaling in just a sec. However, if we do have a couple of duds, which sometimes happens, we move on to a second stage, and we just replace those duds with new campaigns and run them again, and typically that solves the problem for us. Finally, we move over to the third stage. Now, this third stage is going to be a duplicate of the campaigns that we've already found that are winners, okay? So in that middle stage, we're going to begin scaling those up, and then we create what's called a mega CBO. And in this mega CBO, we want at least 10 ad sets. It works extremely well because, Facebook's got its whole rule of 5, and we found that once we put 10 to even 20 ad sets or more, works super well. And again, it's just all of our winners that we've found up until this point. The main difference is actually on the creative level here. So we're going to take all of the post IDs of the really high-performing dynamic creatives, and we're going to throw them in and actually start building up social proof. Keep in mind, we do keep a bunch of different creative variations, 5 to 6 in here, because what's going to happen is, again, when Facebook identifies that one of those creatives isn't performing as well as it was, particularly when you're starting to spend higher budgets, it's going to start delivering to the second and the third performers on its own. So then you don't have to worry too much about that ad fatigue. A lot of people assume that when they start running ads and they've got 5 different ad variations in an ad set, they assume that the ones that perform not as well as the top performers don't work, when in fact it's just relative and they're just not working as well, but they're just dormant there, and Facebook's going to use them later on when it needs it and when the top performers start to deteriorate